It is time for... What the hell is this? Welcome to the Wicked Gamer and Collector. It's just awesome that you're tuning in. So in today's video we are going to talk about the GT King from the brand Beelink versus the Pro version, or the King is back in the Pro. But the question is, what are the differences and is this thing worth your money in general? For example, do you have the original version and want to go to Pro? Is this worth your money to upgrade? And if it comes to performance, what are we going to get? And also we are going to do a side-by-side comparison, because with the casings there are quite some differences. And I just wanted to show you over here. And again, I want to focus this on also a little bit of gaming and emulation, because I think a lot of people are interested in this. So again, even if it comes to a standpoint of gaming or emulation, and you want to upgrade or you want to buy one of these products, is this worth your money? So that's what we're going to find out. I would say consider subscribe to the channel, because I do a lot of these contents, and hit that little bell, and it would be great to have you here in the Wicked family. Alright, let's go on. So if it comes to Android boxes from China, I think there are just a couple of brands making a lot of, let's say, high performance Android boxes. Some are looking pretty cool, like this one. Even this one has light up eyes. Little feature I really personally like. But the question is this thing powerful enough? Don't forget to check out the reviews after this video, because I did a lot of extended testings, a lot of gameplays, so you have a better idea what you're going to get. But this thing looks quite nice. I got it for quite some time now and it works like a charm. Alright, so let's talk about the GT King Pro, because the Pro is here like the Nvidia Shield. You have an upgraded edition. But I wanted to do this side by side, because I wanted to give you more like an idea what are the differences without, let's say, burning your money on an upgrade that you don't need, for example. Alright, let's talk about the performance, but better said, let's talk about the chipset, because this is quite interesting. So if you're not familiar with the GT King in general, the performance and the chipset is pretty cool and pretty interesting. But there is only one downside, as you can see maybe here when I'm putting it side by side. You can see already that the CPU and the GPU are basically the same chipset. If it comes to, let's say, the chipset itself, they're basically the same. And the same goes for the memory, the storage, the display output. All those things are the same. So that is the disappointing part, but I need to, let's say, grab the box itself, do a side by side comparison, because here you can see there are some differences. When you're grabbing both boxes and putting them side by side, you can see there are quite some differences with the measurements. And I think that here is going to get the biggest difference if it comes to the Beelink or the King Normal and the Pro King. But first let's talk about the casing itself, because here we have the biggest differences. Beside the measurements, you can see that this thing is fully made of plastic. I really like the light up eyes. They don't have it anymore, as you can see over here. It's a little bit of a bummer, but if you look at the casing and the quality, it's very cheaply made. I really like how it looks, but at the end it's going to get really hot when you're playing for a couple of hours. So when you're going back to the Pro, this is indeed a big improvement. It feels quite nice, it feels quite heavy, and this thing is made of metal, and that is something that is very good for the cooling. But right, so enough talking about the cooling and the casing. So, but if you look at the connection, there are also quite some big differences. So if you look at the left side, you can see that they changed some things out. For example, with the King Pro, we're having a full SD card. That is at the end sticking out a little bit. Here at the left, we're having both two USB 3.0 ports, and the King is using a CF that goes all the way in. Right, so let's talk about the back, because here there are quite some differences. First of all, if you look at the top version over here, the King has an optical out, and they lose this with the Pro. They swapped to the RS232 control port, and I don't understand exactly why. They give you the option now for giving the audio jack out. I know for a fact that the Pro has been dedicated more to the people who really love audio, but still I don't get it why they lose the optical out. So there are quite some differences, and again you don't have a USB port at the back with the Pro. And with the Pro we're having an on and off switch here now, so that is also very cool. But at the right side you can see that we're having 2 USB ports with the Pro and there is no on the King. So at the end with the Pro we're having 4 USB ports, 3.0 in total. But I must say, I know there is a USB port on the back of the King, but it's only in 2.0. So if you look at the Pro, if it comes to the USB port, it's a big improvement. Let's begin with the menu itself. The menu are just basic Beelink menus that you're going to get most of these boxes, and including the King and the King Pro. Both are exactly the same. You're stuck with the layout and here you can just add new stuff. That's it. Both of these boxes are coming with the same layout, alright, but also comes with the same error mode. I must be honest, these are not very expensive, but they work like a charm. Most of the time, if you're going to get a new TV with an Android box built inside, or let's say in Smart TV, is that you need to buy an expensive, very expensive television to get this special error modes. Nevertheless, very cool that you're going to get this thing with both of the Kings. So basically we're having almost the same specification. There's a slightly, let's say, different chipset if you look at the CPU. And it's more like a minor improvement if you look at the older the King. So I already mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you look at the box it's exactly the same, but it's when you're digging a little bit deeper you can see, and when you're going to use some benchmark you will see some differences. So again, let's take a close look at the specification of both systems. And what you can see already, again, most of the things are the same. But if you look at the CPU, you can see the King Pro has a different model. And this one is slightly a little bit better. And you will see it with doing a benchmark, for example. For example, when you're putting both boxes side by side and you're going to look at the score, you can see that the King Pro has a slightly, let's say, minor improvement if it comes to the score. It's not a big jump. So at the end, once putting it side by side, the specifications, and at the end doing the benchmark, you can see that the King Pro is a minor upgrade. But then is the question, how does this translate? How does it translate if it comes to playing games on Android, but especially when we're going to play some retro emulation? Is the Pro a big improvement? So when it comes for high demanding Android games, I think the King, both of them will handle just fine. You will see a slightly big improvement if it comes to, let's say, the Call of Duty game, for example. Well, let's say lower two-dimensional games like Sega Mega Drive, Super Famicom, you name it. There will not be a problem at all, and of course you don't see any improvement because the King is basically an overkill for games like this. And the same story applies to the Neo Geo and main, let's just say, arcade games. The King itself runs Sega Dreamcast very well thanks to the Dream emulator. But what I did notice with the Pro, there is not a big improvement, and I think this is simply because they are using the same GPU chipset. But again, there's something you don't need to forget when emulating retro games on a media box of Android. It's very important that you need to know that you're using a good emulator that supports the hardware. So keep that one in mind, but both systems run the Sega Saturn quite well. But I was hoping with the King Pro that we had more power so we can finally run games like God of War. Because if God of War runs fine, we can finally play all the PSP games. And that would be very great. But again, the Pro, it's not a big improvement. So God of War, the same story like the previous model. Doesn't get better performance. It's still playable, don't get me wrong. Alright, so at the end, if you want to play some Android games, or for example you want to retro emulation, I think it doesn't even matter which version you buy, simply because the performance wise are almost identical to each other. If you look at the Nvidia Shield, for example, this is just a great, let's say, second option. Nothing defeats the Nvidia Shield at the moment, but let's say these Kings are pretty cool. I really love the King boxes. They're quite powerful again, but if you choose one of these, it's more you need to ask yourself which will fit my need if it comes to the connections, for example. There are the things you need to ask yourself. So I want to thank you for watching. It's awesome that you're tuning in. I would say just subscribe to the channel, consider it. It would be great to have you in the Wicked family. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. And don't forget to check the little bell. The king is back, baby. Oh yeah.